Everyone talks about timeline jumping like it's a quick mental hack. Shift your mindset, visualize something better, and suddenly you're in a new reality. But if you've tried all the journaling, the meditations, and the scripting, yet still find yourself looping in the same patterns, there's a reason, and it's not because you're not trying hard enough. The truth is, what holds you back from jumping to a new timeline isn't just a lack of belief or willpower. It's energetic entanglement. Here's what that means. When you go through emotionally intense or identity-defining experiences, especially those rooted in fear, trauma, failure, or deep longing, your energetic system records that frequency, and unless it's consciously released, you become entangled with the version of yourself who lived it. That version lives on, not just in memory, but in vibration. That old energy becomes a signal, and the quantum field, the invisible matrix that reflects your internal state, doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you're still connected to. So even if you're visualizing your dream life, if you're still entangled with the timeline of fear, self-doubt, abandonment, or scarcity, that's what the field will mirror back. This is why so many people feel like they're stuck in the same emotional loops, even after making big external changes. You can change your job, your partner, your location, but if you're still vibrating with the same frequency that defined your past, you're not timeline jumping. You're just repeating the same track in a different costume. Real timeline jumping doesn't begin with action. It begins with energetic disconnection, with identifying the frequencies you're still bonded to, and consciously choosing to release them. And here's the key. You don't jump forward by pushing. You jump forward by clearing. You create space, and in quantum physics, space is what allows a new reality to emerge. So, if it feels like you're doing everything right and still getting nowhere, you're not broken, you're just entangled. And that's what we're here to shift. You've probably told yourself, I've let that go. You've journaled it, forgiven it, maybe even tried to raise your vibration. But still, you find yourself attracting the same type of relationships, situations, or emotional reactions, as if life keeps rewinding the same scene. This is the hidden truth. Your mind can move on, but your energy might not have. That's because timeline jumping isn't just about choosing a new future. It's about recognizing where your frequency is still anchored to the past. And more often than not, that anchor isn't a thought. It's a felt experience that never fully dissolved. A moment where you formed an emotional belief like, it's not safe to be seen. Good things don't last. I have to earn love. These beliefs don't just live in your brain. They embed in your nervous system, in your body's subtle field. And because the quantum field responds to the full spectrum of your vibration, not just your words or thoughts, that hidden entanglement continues to project an outdated signal. So what does this mean for timeline jumping? It means that unless you release the emotional imprint of your old self, you're still energetically tuned to the version of reality that matches that pain, not the one you're trying to call in. You might visualize abundance, but if you're still entangled with the version of you who was rejected, broke, or unseen, the field will prioritize that frequency, not out of punishment, but out of coherence. The universe isn't personal, it's precise. It reflects back what's most consistent in your energetic field. So the work isn't just about choosing a better timeline. It's about becoming a frequency match for it, not just mentally, but vibrationally. And to do that, you need to identify the emotional bookmarks you've left in past timelines and gently begin to untangle from them. The shift doesn't require force, it requires awareness. Once you locate the thread, you can begin to pull it loose, and as you do, the field begins to respond, because what you release energetically, the universe can no longer reflect. Most people don't realize this. You don't stay stuck because you're not trying hard enough. You stay stuck because you're still entangled with a past version of yourself, one who vibrates at the exact frequency of the life you're trying to leave behind. You can say affirmations all day. You can create vision boards, set intentions, and take action. But if you haven't cut the thread that ties you to the identity of not enough, not safe, or not ready, your energy will default back to the same timeline over and over again. This is why life feels like a loop. Different people, different places, but the same emotion. Because energy doesn't lie, it recycles until it's released. The quantum field isn't listening to your words. It's listening to your vibration. And here's the most overlooked part. Your entanglements, too old identities, emotional wounds, outdated beliefs are still the dominant frequency you're broadcasting, and the field responds to consistency. Not desire, you may want expansion. But if you're still entangled with the frequency of survival, heartbreak, or invisibility, that's what the universe mirrors back. It's not punishing you. It's syncing with your most practiced signal. Think of it this way. You might be trying to stream a new movie, but you're still connected to an old broadcast tower. Until you unplug from the old frequency, the new one can't come through clearly. So the real question is, what are you still entangled with? A moment you haven't forgiven, an identity built from pain, a belief that kept you safe once but now keeps you small. These aren't just memories. They're vibrational threads, and they remain active, shaping your now, until you become aware of them. But here's the good news. Entanglement isn't permanent. It's energetic, and energy can shift. The moment you observe it, really see what you're still bonded to, you begin the process of release. And with release comes space. And with space comes a new signal. And that's what timeline jumping actually requires. Not more action, but a coherent, unattached frequency. That's when the shift happens, not from force, but from freedom. You may think you've moved on because your mind says, I'm done with that. But your body has a different language, and it often tells the truth before your thoughts can catch up. Have you ever walked into a situation and suddenly felt your chest tighten, your heart race, or your energy shrank, even though nothing bad was happening? That's not just anxiety. That's an entangled frequency activating in your nervous system. This is what most people miss about timeline jumping. You can't jump timelines while your body is still entangled with an old one. Emotional trauma, identity wounds, and limiting beliefs don't just live in your memories. They live in your cellular memory, your somatic field, and your energetic signature. They become the invisible threads that tie you to a timeline where you were stuck, unseen, rejected, or in survival mode. Even if your current reality looks different on the outside, if your inner signal is still broadcasting the old wound, the quantum field continues to echo that vibration back to you. Why? Because the field doesn't respond to what's logical. It responds to what's alive in your system now. This is why certain emotions feel recycled, why the same types of people or patterns keep showing up, why progress feels delayed, distorted, or heavy. It's not because you're broken. It's because you're vibrationally tethered to a version of yourself who lived through that past, and your body still thinks it needs to protect you from being fully free. But here's what changes everything. The moment you stop judging these emotional echoes and start listening to them, you shift your power. Your triggers are not signs of failure. They're doorways to liberation. They're showing you where your energy is still entangled and where it's ready to be reclaimed. So, if you felt stuck in a loop, emotionally, energetically, or physically, know this. You don't need to force your way out. You need to free your body from the contract it made with the past. Because when your system feels safe enough to let go, your frequency changes. And when your frequency changes, your timeline finally can. Here's one of the biggest misconceptions in the manifestation space, that you need to escape your current reality in order to jump to a new one. That if you can just visualize hard enough, meditate longer, or stay in a high vibe all day, you'll finally land on the better timeline. But the quantum field doesn't respond to escapism. It responds to integration. That means the very parts of yourself you're trying to avoid, the shame, the grief, the anger, the fear, those are not the blocks. They're actually the gateways. You don't jump timelines by bypassing your humanity. You jump by reclaiming the energy that's been frozen in those moments. Because when you integrate the parts of you that once felt abandoned, unloved, or unsafe, you collapse the version of the timeline that needed to repeat those lessons. Integration is how you close the loop. Here's the energetic truth. The version of you that still holds unprocessed emotion is like an open tab in your energetic browser, and it takes up bandwidth. When you don't close those tabs by acknowledging, feeling, and reclaiming the energy your system keeps, returning to that frequency to resolve it. That's why healing isn't the opposite of timeline jumping. It is timeline jumping. When you integrate the fear instead of avoiding it, your system upgrades. When you feel the sadness instead of numbing it, your frequency expands. And when you accept the shadow instead of rejecting it, your timeline shifts. Why? Because coherence, the state of being energetically aligned and whole, is the fastest way to collapse an old reality and open a new one. The field doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present and integrated. So, instead of asking, how do I escape this timeline? Ask, what part of me still needs to be seen, felt, or freed here? Because the moment you bring loving awareness to the parts you've been running from, you reclaim your full signal and your new timeline meets you there. Here's where most people get confused. They believe timeline jumping is about thinking better thoughts or saying the right affirmations. And while mindset can absolutely influence your energy, it's not the core mechanism for real timeline shifts. Thoughts are frequency is foundational. You can say, I am abundant, but if your body still feels constricted, anxious, or in lack, the quantum field doesn't respond to your words. It responds to the vibration beneath them, because the universe doesn't speak English, it speaks energy. So what determines your true frequency? It's not what you wish for, it's what you embody in your nervous system, your emotional tone, and your felt sense of self. Frequency is your energetic baseline, the unspoken signal you're radiating all the time, even when you're not thinking about it. This is why so many people get frustrated. They try to think positively, but nothing changes. They visualize daily, but the external world stays the same. That's because the mind can only take you so far. Real timeline jumping requires a shift in your internal set point, and that shift happens when your entire system, mind, body, heart, and energy becomes coherent. Coherence isn't about being happy all the time. It's about alignment. It's when your thoughts, emotions, and actions all support the same frequency, without contradiction. When you begin to feel safe being seen. When you trust in your worth without needing to prove it, when your nervous system softens into the now, instead of bracing for what might go wrong, that's when your frequency rises. And that's when the quantum field begins to reorganize around a new timeline, not because you forced it, but because you've become a vibrational match for it. The truth is, you don't chase timelines, you tune into them, and tuning isn't mental, it's energetic. So the most powerful thing you can do right now isn't to think your way forward, it's to feel your way into alignment. Because once your frequency shifts, your timeline has no choice but to follow. One of the most powerful and misunderstood aspects of timeline jumping is this: you don't make the shift by forcing change. You make the shift by becoming energetically unavailable for the version of yourself that aligns with your current timeline. In simpler terms, timeline jumping isn't about chasing a better future. It's about no longer entertaining the patterns, beliefs, and identities that keep recreating your past. You don't get the new timeline. You become the version of you who already lives in it. And to do that, you have to let go of the parts of yourself that were only designed to survive the old one. That means letting go of the habits that numb you, the thought loops that shame you, the people who reinforce your limitations, the inner voice that tells you to stay small, just in case. These aren't just behaviors, they're anchors, vibrational anchors to an outdated version of you. And here's the truth no one talks about. That version of you served a purpose. It protected you. It helped you navigate hard seasons. It kept you safe when you didn't have the tools to feel safe within yourself. But you're not that version anymore. And if you try to bring that identity into the next timeline, it simply won't fit. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your next timeline vibrates at a frequency of self-trust, worthiness, and alignment. To live in that reality, you must embody that frequency now. And that starts by saying, I no longer make decisions from fear. I no longer engage with people who drain my energy. I no longer tolerate thoughts that shrink my light. Not from anger, not from ego, but from deep, grounded clarity. Because becoming unavailable for your old identity isn't rejection, it's graduation. And when the universe sees that you're no longer feeding the energetic signature of the old timeline, it doesn't just bring you the new one, it recognizes you're already living there. Imagine the quantum field like a mirror, not a future you're waiting to reach, but a real-time reflection of your current state of being. Most people assume timelines are out there, just waiting to be stepped into. But in truth, the quantum field doesn't operate on time. It responds to identity and vibration. It reflects who you are being, moment to moment. So if you're asking, why hasn't my reality changed yet? A better question is, what part of me is still broadcasting the signal of my old timeline? This isn't about blame. It's about clarity. Your timeline isn't punishing you. It's mirroring your frequency, your unconscious beliefs, your nervous system's safety threshold, and the emotional energy you're still carrying. If you're still holding fear around money, love, success, or visibility, that fear isn't just an emotion. It's a frequency pattern. And unless that pattern shifts, you'll continue to magnetize experiences that reflect it, even if you mentally want something else. Here's the key most people miss. You can't think your way into a new timeline. You have to embody it energetically and emotionally before the proof shows up. That means acting from the version of you who already feels grounded, free, abundant, seen. Not when life gives you a reason to, but now, even when it's uncomfortable. especially when it's uncomfortable, because discomfort is where the real shift begins. That's how the mirror recalibrates, when you choose to feel safe before the outcome arrives. When you show up as love, clarity, or power, regardless of external conditions, you're no longer reacting to your timeline. You're reprogramming it. And this is where true quantum shift happens, when your internal state is no longer dictated by external proof. The proof rearranges itself to match your internal state. So don't wait for the new reality to convince you it's real. Become the evidence of it now, because once your energy becomes coherent with the timeline you desire, the mirror reflects it back, not as a reward, but as a natural response to who you've become. There's one final element almost everyone overlooks when it comes to timeline shifting: your relationship with the unknown. Because here's the paradox. We say we want a new reality, a higher timeline, a different life, but we still cling to the very certainty of the old one, even when it's painful. Why? Because the nervous system is wired for safety, not success. And to your subconscious mind, familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar possibility. So, when you start shifting, when you begin releasing old identities, habits, and people, the fear doesn't mean something is going wrong. It means you're stepping into the void, the space between timelines. This space feels uncertain, quiet, even disorienting. You're not who you used to be, but you're not fully living the new version yet either. And this is where most people sabotage the jump. They interpret the void as failure, as evidence that nothing's working. So they run back to what's familiar, to the timeline they were trying to leave behind. But here's the truth. The void is not punishment. It's a quantum recalibration zone. This is where the energetic codes of your new timeline are starting to lock in, but only if you can stay anchored in trust. Instead of slipping back into control, your job in this phase isn't to force outcomes. It's to stay energetically aligned even when the external doesn't look different yet. That means regulating your nervous system when doubt creeps in, holding the frequency of your future self when old thoughts resurface, letting go of timelines that collapse without panicking or chasing, because the faster you become comfortable with the unknown, the faster your energy stabilizes into a higher frequency. And the faster the field mirrors that stability back to you, not as luck, but as physics. So, if you're in the void right now, don't fight it, don't fill it. Become still inside of it, because the unknown isn't empty. It's full of everything you've ever asked for, just waiting for you to stop clinging to who you were, so it can finally meet who you've become. If you've made it this far, you've probably realized something important. Timeline jumping isn't about learning more, doing more, or waiting for the right vibration to magically arrive. It's about a decision, a deep, unwavering choice to no longer participate in the version of reality that contradicts who you know you truly are. And that choice, it's available now, not when you hit a certain income. Not when someone validates your worth, not when your external world finally looks like the vision board. Now, because the quantum field doesn't respond to effort, it responds to clarity. Your next timeline already exists, but it can only activate the moment you become a match for it, not intellectually, but energetically, emotionally, behaviorally. And here's the real secret. Timeline jumping isn't a grand, dramatic shift. It's subtle, quiet, often invisible at first. It's the moment you say, I no longer abandon myself for approval. I no longer delay joy until something outside of me changes. I no longer wait to be chosen. I choose myself fully. These choices begin as whispers, But the more consistently you live by them, the louder your new timeline becomes, until it's no longer out there, it's simply your life. You won't need to chase signs. You won't obsess over outcomes. You'll know you've shifted. Not because something happened, but because who you're being no longer fits your old reality. And once you're no longer a match for the old version of you, the universe recalibrates with precision. Opportunities, relationships, synchronicities, they don't arrive by chance. They lock onto the signal you now embody. So, if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. You don't need to figure out every step. You just need to become unavailable for anything that doesn't reflect your highest truth. The timeline isn't coming. It's already here, and the door to it opens the moment you do.